It's one way to overcome the difficulties that come with it.
I want to say that it's a lot different now than it was like 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Sure. Maybe like now you go into a place, like even here in Salina, and there's this stuff. And there's always salad.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, something a little bit more than that. Even in restaurants, not every place. Yeah. I guess it depends on how strict you are, right? So like, you guys. There's also Yeah, they have during the warm parts of the year, he has like it's like back to the restaurant. I feel like, yeah, you're not really getting anything else. Alright, I was just thinking. You're almost the same.
No, just have this prayer.
Okay. I think they're moving to a store. That's cool. I haven't been there in a while. My wife has been there. So, I mean, she's always been kind of into that. And, so I was thought it was good to have a spot. I always thought it was a problem facing over there. Nobody, you don't go past it. You don't notice it. Ready to go? We're not waiting for Rich. I know, it's kind of what I'm saying. Anyone want to go run and find it? All right, I'm gonna call her. Oh, yeah.
Dr. Case, are we waiting on Dr. P-Tech?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you just text her and see what her PTA?
Yes, ma'am.
She was. I don't know.
Listen, I am not gonna try to say I can call. Nothing at all. Nothing.
They're out there kind of out of the off-beat path. Just a little, it's only a couple blocks out of the game. Nobody goes fast. I feel like a lot of those connections are like the same section, so they go in there and go back and back and
Okay, that's definitely.
Not 100% sure. It's like locally, you know, somebody in town. I don't know. There was a summer CSA program. Community support agriculture associate, like sign up for like a box on Facebook. So you basically like paying for an ag or a box. Yeah, it's basically like straight from the farms, and then they bring the stuff in and send it there, they put it sorts it out into the bags and everything. So yeah, in the summer it's a good way to get like fresh produce. I guess the only downside is you get whatever you're getting, so you might get some weird stuff. Yeah, definitely. I always think the weird stuff to me is all the squash and stuff like that. Roasted. Yeah. I guess you can kind of. I mean, it's usually good. It's just, you gotta figure it out.
I'm gonna introduce you guys.
So that makes sense.
Are you gonna do the intro?
I am about to start at 6.
I think I'm gonna stand right in front. I mean, I guess you could stand in front. Is in front of this good?
Yeah. It's just the size of it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Best of KWU. I'm Andrew Bedros in the Department of Sociology, and it's my honor and privilege to kind of lead the show, I guess, tonight. We're going to show you some of the best work that Kansas Wesleyan students have done in the past year. This is a program that we've been doing for about 10 years at Kansas Wesleyan. Every year, we're always kind of honored and surprised to see all the effort that our students are putting into their work. We get to see all kinds of different projects. But I think it really demonstrates their commitment to the community, to their academics, to the campus. And of course, it's another night that we like to share it with the family at Kansas Wesleyan, because this is something that can't happen without the faculty, staff, alumni, and of course the family members of all of these great students. So tonight we're gonna give a couple of different presentations, and we'll get a chance to see some of the work that students submitted this year. We're going to start with a special presentation about our Deca program. If you haven't heard about the Deca program yet, you'll be pretty surprised to hear we're doing very well. So Deca is a national organization which prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management in colleges all around the globe. Deca competitions present students with real-time business problems and opportunities, and students present possible solutions to a judge. Each year, KWU's Deca group dominates the competition statewide. Does that sound true?
That is true.
This year was no different. This year, KWU matched up against the likes of the University of Kansas, Fort Hays State University, Tabor College, and Cali College. Overall, our team earned first place in 11 of the 14 total events in which it competed. Students had the opportunity to compete in either individual or team events. In those events, KWU took 24 of the 26 possible medals. I'm going to let Dr. Michelle Case tell you a little bit about the Deca program, and then we'll hear a little bit about what's going on with them.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I am beyond proud to introduce this next group of students. So Andrew's right, I like to say we, but they did all the hard work, placed first in the state. And a couple weeks ago, they went to Baltimore and competed at the international level. We have 14 students on the team. All 14 made it to the finals, unprecedented. From there, all 14 made it into the top 10 in the world. So we have just a sampling of what they do, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Taylor Lane, Connor Waltz, and Trey Duffy, and they're just going to show you a little bit about what makes this group of students so very special.
There's two different types of events you guys can compete in at Deca. The first is a single event. The way it works is we are given a case. We have no idea what this case is about, what the topic is about. All we know is the type of business or event it'll be in. I compete in human resource management. Connor and Trey, they compete in a team event called sports and entertainment marketing. There's a wide variety of events. There's financial events, there's hospitality, there's everything. So I took this case. This was my final case that I presented. I had 30 minutes to prep this case. So complete the PowerPoint, figure out what I was going to talk about, everything in 30 minutes. And then I had 15 minutes to present to the judge. So my case I got to present about was I was an advertising company. I was the chief executive HR director. I had to figure out a solution of how we were going to increase promotions in our organization. We had a problem where our managers were not allowing promotions to go through because they didn't want to lose the talent that they had in their department. So I had to create a training program for managers, for a company and the business alike, and go from there. So these performance indicators, we're given 5 performance indicators to talk about. We have to hit these in our presentation. They make up 75% of the possible points, and they're just normal things like human resource theories, communications, just how I'm going to implement the training. So that's just a couple of them. So then I go into each performance indicator. Now each event has these code words or keywords that judges like to hear. For HR, my words that judges love to hear are communication and retention. Judges love to hear those words. They love to hear about what you're learning in the classroom, and that's honestly what Deca is about. It's a great way to apply real-world situations to what we're learning every day in these classrooms. So it's a great way to tie back our knowledge together. So for theories, it's like psychological theory, it's economical theory, it's social theory. So just different things that we're learning in the classroom that we can tie in. So then we break them down into key factors and just different like performance things that we want to do for a program. At this point, I started breaking down of what I wanted to do for my training program, how I wanted to implement it, what I was going to do about training managers. Every single detail that you have, they want to hear it. And the best thing about it is you can make up whatever you want. So in my organization, I had a policy that I completely just made up off the top of my head that we already had training time implemented in our policies, we just weren't utilizing it. And the judges have to go with it. They have to go with whatever you're saying. So their job is to role play back to you as the president or the chief officer or whatever. So whatever I say about the organization, they have to adopt to it. So if I say that we're gonna give $10,000 bonuses and that's an annual thing we do, they have to go along with it. So I started, at this point, I started tying up everything. We want to make sure our judges are involved in the presentation. We ask them questions constantly. So at this point, I really relied on the judge and what did he value, what did he think we should do. And that's a great way to make sure that it's just not me talking for 15 minutes. It's a way for them to see and allow the role playing to continue. So something that we do that puts us above and beyond what other Deca schools do is we actually implement a plan of action, and we tie dates and we tie realistic things that are happening into our presentations to just give that real life factor. So at this point, and something all of us do and that really, really puts us above the rest, is we talk about our plans moving forward and what we want to implement. And then something the judges love to see the best is a timeline, and that's really, really something that Dr. Petak has really honed in on us about, is allowing them to see the timeline and what we want to do. So this is where we all include it, and it's something that really sets us above just the timeline. Again, I can make up whatever dates I want. I can say it's happening in a year. I can say it's happening in a month. So it just allows them to see that I've really thought through this process and allowed them to see that I have a realistic understanding of what's happening. And then I just like to recap the end. So that's kind of how I put a case together. I had 30 minutes to do this, 15 minutes to present. I also, in the single events, take an exam. It's a 100-question exam. I have 60 minutes to complete. That goes into 25% of my score as well. So that's kind of a little bit how I put a single case together.
Thank you.
You know, just like split the money or. Oh, okay. Alright. How do I do this? Yeah, you can. It's fine. So we're a little different. So my name's Connor Waltz.
My name is Trey Duffy.
And we do a team event. So unlike the individuals, we actually have 60 minutes to prepare our event. So this is the same exact thing we go through. We get a case. In this sense, we are the marketing directors and managers of Recess, and they basically do activities for kids, play days. And they wanted to figure out a way to market it rather than it being daycare. They wanted to market it as a kids camp. So basically, we had to come up with a name for the kids camp, how we were going to run it, how we were going to market it, communicate with individuals, all of that within 60 minutes, and then have 50 minutes to pitch it to the director, and then 15 minutes to pitch it to the director, and then figure out how we're going to do it. So Dr. Pitak has done an amazing job of making sure that we can stand out as individuals here. So we have to find something that can help us stand out. So like Taylor said, we have to cover the performance indicators, but if you just go down the sheet that the judge has, that's not going to be enough. So what we do at Kansas Wesleyan is we find a way to adapt this into the real world and then actually adapt it into the organization.
Right, so like Connor said, like one of the things that stands out is we like hit those performance indicators like right off the bat. So like we talk about like what we're going to talk about right at the beginning. And so like those are our performance indicators that we had. And so from there, then we just go straight into the first one, which is developing positioning concept for a new product idea. So we just go straight into it.
So right here, we had to figure out how we were going to position our product. So show of hands, who enjoys kids camps? Or who has
Who
kids
enjoys
that
sending their kids to
yes, or had kids that participated in kids camps? No? Okay, all right. So one thing that we did that separated us apart is we look up and find statistics on how this works. So when we were figuring out our target market, 46% of people in the United States work a 9-to-5 job. So we wanted to figure out a way to make a kids camp that would actually include those individuals in the target market so we could increase our profitability as an organization. And then these are the things that we were going to do to allow that to happen.
Right, and Connor brought that up because most of the time we open it with a stat, we open it with a little conversation. Like what made us different, and we learned this from Dr. Pitak, we didn't start off with a quote, we literally asked the judge a question, and then Connor gave a different perspective, I gave a different perspective, and we talked about it, and then that got the judge like interested, like, okay, are they going to apply that to their presentation? And in fact, we did. So. Okay, and so this was one of my slides that I did. So to determine the services to provide customers. So Connor and I, we did talk about this a lot. Like obviously with a normal kids camp, we offer indoor and outdoor activities like Recess had done. But what makes us different is we want to really focus on the crafts and the building like projects because I know it's just a different aspect for the kids to learn. And then we wanted to focus on intellectual activities because like Connor and I had said, I said to the judge, and I just made this up, that I love going to kids camps because I love the intellectual activities that challenge my mind to learn more versus like the extracurricular, the sports and all that stuff. And so that's one of the things that I kind of hit on with that is we were going to give them different challenges, like we give them a bunch of like noodles and tape, and you had to make this like tower to like stack this marshmallow, and you get 15 minutes to do it. We talked about that. We talked about another challenge where you had like an egg, and you had to build like a little cage around it, and you would drop it from different heights and see which kids like the egg would protect, like the cage would protect the egg at the highest heights. And so basically, so that was kind of a little bit about the services, and then again, all these activities would prosper relationship building. So that was another thing that stood out for us. So.
Yeah, and then ultimately this went into our core values. So the name of our kids camp was going to be New Horizon Discovery Camp. So what we wanted to do is we want to create new horizons for the kids, but we also wanted to help them discover the things inside themselves that they enjoy doing. So I went to kids camps as a little kid, and I enjoyed the athletics aspect. Being an athlete, I always wanted to be outside and have fun. But one of the things that we were thinking through is what if you can integrate something else that allows them to expand their horizons, such as intellectual activities, creating basically a nest to protect an egg, or building a tower out of marshmallows and sticks. Things that can actually be hands-on activities rather than them just sitting in a room at daycare and watching a movie or just not feeling like they're involved or valued inside of that organization.
Right.
So then these are the natures of our product or service. So to do this, we talked about how 46% of the people have a 9-to-5 job. So what we were going to do is we were going to provide a wide variety of different camp options. So say somebody has grandma and grandpa in town, maybe they don't want to send their kids to an 8-hour kids camp. Well, what we wanted to do was provide different options that would be inside different bundles, which would allow them to have different pricing strategies to meet the target market to increase the profitability. So we would have camps ranging from 2 to 8 hours, which would cover all the bases of a 9-to-5, while also allowing for kids who maybe had a relative or family member in the area to pick them up, also enjoy the opportunity of being at the camp. And then we also had the different camp days that we're going to run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because statistics show us that kids engage the best on Monday, Wednesday, Friday when they have a day in between a break. Rather than overloading them with a kids camp that's 5 days a week or going back to back, we really wanted them to be excited about coming back and enjoying our kids camp and having fun with us as an organization.
Oh. And so this was our last performance indicator, was potential safety issues. So like the ones that are on the screen are, pretty easy to come up with, but we like to make us like different. And so one of the things that we try to do is we try to implement some of the stuff that we had learned in other classes. So Connor and I, we're in a sports law class, and actually Mr. Stevens over there, he's in that same class as well. And we had to recently do a risk management plan for one of our classes. So we thought, you know what? Let's implement a risk management plan in this to make us stand out versus other groups. And that's exactly what we did. So the next slide, we had these tables on it, and we talked about how like each risk would have a consequence score, each risk would have a likelihood score. You would take those numbers times each other, that would come up with that score, and then the tolerance level like that. And we walked the judge through it, and the judge really liked it, gave a lot of head nods. Was like, oh wow, like you don't see that a whole lot. And that's a little bit behind why we did the risk management plan with the risk performance indicator.
And then the last thing that we do, like Taylor said, is we all do a timeline. So we implemented this as a real deal system. So we did this, our research data was going to be conducted in a quarter. So that would give us a whole quarter of research rather than going 1 month or 2 months. Or going a full year, which you could also do as a shorter time. We were going to go make this kids camp happen next year. We were going to use a full quarter to see what kids and parents wanted to do. So we would talk to people, PTO, rather than just using social media, which is a huge tool now. We would also go out in person, use personal selling and all those different aspects to also increase it. And then we also use the dates to follow all the way throughout through an information analysis, begin marketing the system, and then obviously the beginning of the kids camp. So.
And then we just wrap it up by saying this is what we talked about. We go over the performance indicators again, and then we just usually leave with like a question like, so with that being said, do you see any concerns, any issues with this plan moving forward? And then the judge is like, oh, I see something. I got a few questions for you. And then he asks us questions, and then the timer runs out. Oh, bye. And then it's moving on. So, and that's a little bit about our presentation.
All right, so we're also going to hear from some of the students from the social media marketing class, and it'll be some of the same students, but a few others in the mix as well. For this project, the students were asked to pick a local nonprofit and help them prepare some kind of marketing campaign for the Match Madness program that Salina does. And Match Madness is basically a fundraising event to help some local nonprofits get some money. So these students had to come up with their own presentation or their own projects to support these organizations. There were 8 different organizations that volunteered to work with KWU students to help create and manage their social media campaigns. So this project, we're going to hear from 3 of those groups who participated in the project. They're each going to share with you the videos that they produced and explain a little bit about what they did. So first we're going to hear, the first group is going to be Abby Ray, Hunter Payne, and Madeline Norrell.
Hello. My name is Abby Ray. I'm part of this group.
My name is Hunter Payne.
I'm Madeline Norrell.
And so we partnered together on this group, and we partnered with Rolling Hills Zoo. So our group was the Rolling Hills Zoo, and so basically what we did with this social media campaign was we met with these nonprofit organizations that were in Salina, and we basically were a consulting firm. Basically all we did was we met with them, we figured out what problem they wanted to address, and they all were trying to raise money through the March Madness campaign. And so we met with them and kind of asked them what they really wanted from the video, what they wanted from their social media campaign. And so we treated them as a client. And we met with them, we went back, we did some brainstorming, and then all the groups kind of handled their own way differently. But what we did with Rolling Hills Zoo was we actually went back a couple days later and got a bunch of raw footage, and we did basically a photo shoot day with the zoo. And then we kind of came back and edited that. So we had, the pre-production, production, and then post-production phase. The post-production probably took 15 to 20 hours of time. It took a little bit of time to kind of get everything together, to splice it all to make it look pretty, essentially. And yeah, so that was kind of what we did with our presentations.
So we all did different parts of this presentation. I would say we all took video and we all sat down initially with the consultant to figure out what they wanted. Hunter did the majority of the actual video editing. Specifically, we used the software Premiere Pro for the video editing, and I wrote the script for it, I voiced it, and then Madeline helped to pick the shots within the actual video. We used a lot of her shots, and so we just kind of wanted to show you the video, and then we have some statistics.
Planning for our future happens now. You have the power to protect the Rolling Hills Zoo's future by making your donation to the zoo's endowment during this year's Match Madness. The zoo opened in 1999, and recently we added a new addition to the family, and he is going to be one big boy someday. Our rhino calf Augustus was born at Rolling Hills Zoo on December 9th, but just 2 short months later, he already weighs 300 pounds. It can be expensive caring for a rhino calf, along with the many other animals at the zoo. But that's where contributions from local citizens like you can truly help. Rolling Hills Zoo's success is only possible because of people like you helping to solidify the zoo's future, and Augustus's future healthy appetite too. If you would like to help with the zoo's future efforts, please be sure to donate during Match Madness on March 24th, online or at the Salina Fieldhouse, to make a lasting impact as we touch hearts, ignite passion, and save wildlife.
So after this video was posted onto all of their social media platforms, it actually engaged a new audience for the zoo. So the zoo gets people from all over this town and towns and even other states. And over spring break, the zoo got 6,000 new members a part of their to come in and look at the animals, and 2,000 of those people were on the same day. And so it was just really cool to see how our work played out and how we could really help the Rolling Hills Zoo and do all this work for them. And it was really educational for us as well, because we got to actually be these social media marketers and go out and see what people were wanting to see, what specific target market they wanted to see, and to see how we played toward that specific target market and how we actually got the audience that we wanted and needed for this project.
And so like Hunter had said, the project took us about 20 hours in total to complete, and that was just for the video portion. We were also assigned to create an actual social media campaign to market them, each nonprofit group for Match Madness, and specifically the Rolling Hills Zoo opted out of that for our group, just because they have a social media team that is already there. And so my team actually helped with the social media campaign for Salina Shares. And so I think they're going to introduce the Salina Shares video, and then we'll talk a little bit about the campaign.
Planning for our future happens.
So sorry.
Okay. So I'm Christian Stevens, and this is Connor Waltz. And we had Salina Shares, and actually we had about 12 hours to do our video. And we were kind of a last minute desperation play. One of the groups ended up kind of backing out of their social media project, and Professor Case decided to reach out for some help. And me and Connor were willing to step in and help out. And so we ended up meeting Debbie, and she is an amazing person, by the way. She really helped us out because it was a last minute ditch effort to really get her a promotion video, because you know the whole thing had to be turned in the next day. And so I'm really happy that Debbie was able to work with us, you know, as we were able to work, you know, with her, because it was just really stressful and last minute and everything else like that. And so I'm really happy that we got to make this video for her, because it was a really special moment with all the stories that she had to tell and all the things that she shared with us throughout the days. So.
And honestly, that's what Kansas Wesleyan is all about. So I mean, I am I'm a creative individual. So I do graphic design and photography, and I actually run social media campaigns all the time. I actually just accepted a job with Michigan State this morning. So when Dr. Case came to us, I jumped on the bit automatically to do this. So when it comes to showing a video like this, I really wanted to tell the story that Debbie had. So I wanted to show elements of the things they do at Salina Share. So they do the food bags. People can come in and get food bags. They do what is it?
Laundry of love.
Laundry of love. Yeah. So they do laundry of love. They do all these other different things. So when creating the video, I really wanted to focus on telling the story. And like Christian said, it was kind of a time crunch. We only had 12 hours to go in and film and then edit everything. So like the other group, we used Premiere Pro, and it was a very long night, and there was quite a few energy drinks consumed. But this is the video that we made, and yeah.
This is Debbie Rivers, founder of Salina Shares. Back in July, a young boy came in with a man for a food bag. I offered to give him a backpack filled with the supplies from the supply list. A couple days later, he came in to pick up those backpacks. He said, "How do you make your money if you give everything away?" I explained that our goal wasn't to make money, but to meet needs and enrich the lives of others. He said, "Yeah, but how do you pay the rent?" Everybody shares what they can when they can. A few days after that, he came back. He explained that he didn't have much to share, but he had tried to find something, and he thought maybe another young boy would like this skateboard. But he insisted and said, "You told me that's how this whole thing works." Everybody shares. I told him he was right, and that he understood what even some grown-ups do not.
Yeah.
That being said, we'd like to pass it over to the social media campaign so they can talk a little bit about what that was like.
Yeah, so we did do the social media campaign for Salina Shares. They didn't actually end up using all of the content that we produced for them just because it didn't fit with what they were wanting seasonally or different things like that. But we prepared a plan for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for them.
After this video went out and all of our social media posts went out and the day came for Match Madness, she was expecting about $3,000 because, like I said, they had never really done this before and they weren't expecting much. And after all of our hard work going out for her, they got $12,000, and then they got about 120 new donors for their organization. So it was pretty incredible, like I said, to see how Dr. Case taught us these strategic plans in order to get people in and get this specific target market in and get people to donate. And with all of our work, that's exactly what happened to Salina Shares.
So that's that one though.
Thank you.
So I'm Bryce Stephenson. We have Taylor Lang and Linda Himes, and we did the Salina Emergency Aid Food Bank. Just to introduce the video, we kind of wanted to give more of an insight or kind of hit more to home to the people here in Salina of just like the increase in pricing of grocery stores and kind of like show the day-to-day operations of what goes on in the food bank. So let's get right to the video.
What does the face of hunger look like? Let me tell you what it looks like. It looks like your neighbor, your coworker, the children in classrooms. 1 in 5 children are hungry in Salina County, and the number keeps rising. COVID hit many families in Salina hard financially, and rising food prices are making it even harder for parents to put a meal on the table even once a day. Last year in January, the number of individuals helped was 1,272. A year later, the number rose this January to 1,893.
Now more than ever, the Salina Food Bank needs your help to make sure everyone in Salina has access to food. With your donation, you will not only be providing food for those right here in your community, but you'll be able to fund gardening projects and cooking classes, giving those a little extra help where they need it the most. Donate to Salina Emergency Aid Food Bank for Match Madness on March 24th. Because the fight is over.
So we really wanted to continue the whole "the fight is not over" in our social media campaign that we did, and we were able to work with Karen Couch, who's the executive director, and she's a wonderful lady who really had no guidelines for us at all of what she wanted. So she's like, "It's totally up to you." So we really wanted to work with the whole "fight is not over," and we based our social media campaign about that. We really wanted to show the need of the increase of poverty in Salina, and that there's hunger everywhere, and many times people don't realize it, and just the impact that the Salina Food Bank has on people. So that was a really cool thing of working with all their different agencies and all their volunteers and getting testimonies and talking And we even did a couple things where we got recipes from them of just like quick, easy things that people could throw together that cost $10, $15 a meal. So we really wanted to base our social media campaign off of the people of Salina and not necessarily just certain groups of Salina. And we were able to see a lot of success from that.
Because of that, during Match Madness, the food bank was able to get first in raising donations. They expected to get around 18,000, but we were able to help them to get to 23,000 actually. And because of all of this, they're actually able to get around 100 new donors to help them throughout this process.
Autism and neurodivergency are often difficult topics for people to talk about and understand, and because of that, we have a lot of misconceptions in our society. This is one of those topics that I think is probably underappreciated, and definitely one that I think the next presenter, Abby Ray, did a fantastic job writing a paper in a sociology class of mine. This is a paper that, to me, kind of represented what I hope a student who's taking a sociology class gets out of that class. The ability to apply some kind of understanding that's maybe a little bit different than what the typical understanding is about some kind of problem. In our society today, those who suffer from autism and other autism spectrum disorders are oftentimes misunderstood. And because of that misunderstanding, some people suffer. And I think that bringing a little bit more attention to that problem is definitely something that Abby did in her paper. So I'm going to invite Abby Ray up here to tell you a little bit about what she wrote in her paper in that class.
Hi, me again. So like Andrew Bedros just said, I wrote this for his sociology class actually a few minutes ago. And I think that this topic area is something that deserves to have more of a stage to it, and so that's why I felt implored to not only write this paper for his class, but I've also since presented this paper academically at the Alpha Chi National Conference in Austin, Texas. And has been able to be seen by multiple different sets of eyes, which I'm very appreciative. I wanted to kind of walk through the paper and highlight a couple of the key things within it, but I think it's pretty important to give some background to this issue. Just kind of with some language, first of all. So neurodivergency can be defined as a divergence in mental or neurologic function from which is considered normal or typical. There are several recognized types of neurodivergency like autism, ADHD, OCD, and dyslexia. We can see that it is obviously a spectrum. A person that is unaffected by any of those neurologic conditions would then be neurotypical. So we can see that there are autistic people and there are allistic people. If you do not have autism, you would be allistic then. So we can see that nearly 1 in 7 people worldwide actually have some type of neurologic condition of those listed, which seems like a lot more than what we often consider is the traditional norm. And this is largely due to a great underdiagnosing problem, specifically with women. We can see the diagnostic criteria for autism as actually male-centric. We're seeing that it is curated based on the symptoms that men present at an early age. Disruptive symptoms that affect others around a person, like impulsivity and hyperactivity, are often early observed indicators in the classroom setting for young boys with autism. However, the signs and symptoms are simply forgotten when considering women. And so that brings us to the problem. First, the gender discrepancy in diagnosis. We can see that traditional gender norms are often used to justify the symptoms of autism for men, while pressuring women with the same symptoms to simply keep quiet and complacent. And so women are less likely than men to be diagnosed with autism, and when they are, it is nearly always later in life than their counterparts, which is incredibly important to keep in mind. Now, the discrepancy in diagnosis kind of ranges. We're seeing a 1-to-2 ratio to a 1-to-4 ratio. So every woman with autism, there's actually between 2 and 4 men, which is very interesting. We can see that the female symptoms that present as a result of autism are actually misdiagnosed oftentimes. We can see that women are diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and eating disorders when the overarching issue is actually autism or another kind of neurologic condition. We can see that additionally, the other problem with this diagnostic criteria is that women have to present significantly more severe symptoms in order to qualify as an autistic person, which is simply problematic overall. We can see that one of the other largest problems for why women are statistically underdiagnosed is something called masking. Masking is the act of camouflaging or concealing autistic symptoms, often unintentionally, in an attempt to conform and fit society's standards. We can see that masking can look like a person making perfect eye contact during conversation or sitting still in classroom settings because that's simply the expectation. We can see that constant masking and fighting against your instincts actually creates severe physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, and burnout and anxiety for autistic people. So while it can be good that they're fitting into society's molds and being productive members of society as everyone wants, it's actually incredibly harmful to that individual. We can see that some autistic women go their entire lives without a diagnosis and thus suffer at the end of each day from 24-hour masking. We can see that studies statistically prove that women mask more frequently, more often, and for much larger periods of time than men. This is not a female-exclusive issue, but it is a female-centric issue. We can see, additionally, the implications of underdiagnosing women with autism are serious. In fact, autistic women are 13 times more likely to die by suicide than non-autistic women. We can see that this increased rate of suicide is just one of the issues that occur when women go their entire lives without access to their true neurologic identity. We can see that autistic women walk through life experiencing countless issues socially, academically, and emotionally under the guise that that is simply the way that life is for everyone around them. We can see that as a result, autistic women are then underserved in nearly all educational and work-based environments. They suffer without accommodations, because without a diagnosis, those affected never realize to what extent their lives are being impacted by their autism. We can see on top of this that gender roles actually perpetuate this issue. In America, we are forced as women to uphold fairly extreme gender roles while still being pressured and expected to succeed. We can see that one of the most traditional ways that gender roles influence culture is the misconception that women suffer intrinsically quietly and do not need to speak up to heal. The further implication of this would then be that society will continue to ignore the problems facing autistic women because they're not unlike the problems facing women today. By viewing these as parallels rather than separately, neurodivergent people continue down a path of disenfranchisement. We cannot allow this to continue. And so this begs the question, what can we do about this? How can American autistic women continue to function in a society that works actively against them? Well, first, by empowering women with a proper diagnosis for their neurodivergency, communities can congregate together and help to create actual accommodations for autistic people, while also allowing women to feel understood. Women receiving the proper rates of diagnosis with autism begins with the medical community recognizing a new set of diagnostic criteria for women separately than men. We can see that this will take a considerable amount of time because medical experts would have to create a differing criteria. But this is going to be important. And additionally, the second thing that we can do is revolutionizing the neurotypical mindset. We can see that the quickest and best solution for helping to change the public perception about autistic women is going to be neurotypical people recognizing, normalizing, and not negatively interpreting the behaviors of autistic individuals. Rather than novelty, acceptance, and change, there needs to be a large-scale movement to completely rethink these systems of oppression that are ongoing. And finally, the last thing that neurotypical people can do is going to be normalizing stimming. Stimming is defined as repetitive self-simulating behavior that can feel good or calming to an individual. The interesting thing is everyone stims. Some are just not more socially acceptable than others. A kid tapping his foot in class is stimming, but a girl flapping her hands wildly because she's excited is also stimming. We can see that any form of fidgeting, repetitive noise-making, movement, even listening to the same song on repeat can count as stimming too. It's a way to regulate a person's emotional well-being and state and a coping mechanism to deal with overwhelming situations. We can see that autistic people are actually very good at self-regulation when they are allowed to regulate in their own specific way and not simply the traditional way of coping. If autistic people could stim openly in professional and private settings without the fear of judgment, it would greatly improve countless people's quality of life. Stimming is perfectly normal and natural and has incredible physical and therapeutic benefits. And so we can see that there is a world in which we can change this outcome. We can see that the public's perception of autistic women does not have to continue down this path of disenfranchisement. We, as neurotypical people, can do work to benefit neurodivergent people and accepting them to create accommodations. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions about any of this work further, I definitely would be open to answering them at any given time. So thank you very much.
All right, last but definitely not least, we have veteran KWU graduate Nelson Cook. Nelson has done a project that's a little different than some of the others. Nelson developed a watch face for his Garmin Phoenix watch. It does a bunch of fancy computer stuff, and it displays the kind of information that he's programmed it to display. I definitely don't feel competent to explain it to you, but I know that Nelson can. He showed it to me at some point last year, and I was really impressed by what I saw. So he's going to share it with us today. He's getting it up here on the screen, and any minute now he'll be ready to go. But this is Nelson Cook.
I can share too a little bit. While he's getting ready to go, I'm Dr. Annie Hookman, and every year our seniors their final project is in their capstone course, and this can range from a lot of different things. So they can do networking type projects. I've had kids do I can have kids do server type things, cybersecurity. Programming is a big one. A lot of these guys want to go out and do programming. So Garmin was on his list of places he would like to go when he was done with school, and this project started out being something that he could try to use in interview processes with them. So yes, if you all have smartwatches that you wear, Apple Watches, Fitbits, any of those kinds of things, what you're gonna see is he actually designed his own watch face for this for hours, 60, 70, 80. It was a semester long. We stopped counting after like 30 or 40 hours that he put into this. Very little is actually posted anywhere for him to actually go look at. Believe it or not, I guess people don't like people stealing their stuff. I don't know why that's a thing, but so he had to figure out a lot of this on his own without a lot of internet resources or any help. That's just the way public sectors work with these things. So he did a really good job. A lot of late nights, I'm sure, and frustrations, but that was really kind of where this project stemmed from, is what he wanted to do after graduation.
So I don't have a PowerPoint for you because this has a little bit more depth to it, and it's kind of hard to explain on a two-dimensional surface. So to kind of put things in perspective, whenever you're drawing or building something like this, every single piece of information on the screen is controlled differently, right? So the first thing I realized I wanted to do when I did this is I wanted to have my own graphics. And throughout the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years, there's been lots of different ways to do this. However, there's only a couple of those different ways to do it on a device this small. I have 107 kilobytes worth of memory I can work with. So doing this, I quickly realized that I have to make things as efficient as possible, and any mistakes I will have with this will significantly impact my battery life on the watch. Now, fortunately for me, the Garmin watch actually has a ton of capability. In fact, their average lifespan per charge is 2 weeks. And that's, of course, without utilizing the GPS capabilities that they usually come with. So I realized that if I could at least make it run for a day, I should be in good shape. So in doing so, this right here is the first thing I wrote. Not that one. This one. Now, it's a bunch of squiggly lines, I know, I'm sorry. However, these 4 lines right here simply draw a Bluetooth emblem, specifically the connected one, the blue one. And after I spent about 4 hours drawing a single item, I realized there has got to be a better way to do this. So I quickly did a little bit of research the next night, and I discovered bitmapping. And bitmapping is something that's been around for quite a while, basically since images even existed on computers. And I took a whole bunch of images and I converted them to bitmaps. And after I got doing that, I started assigning them what we call variables, and I started populating them to the screen. And I will go ahead and I'll cut to the chase. I'll show you what it's like to be, what it looks like at the end now. So this is a live simulation of the watch. This is what it looks like today. And as you can see, there is a ton of different information on this screen. Not only is it information, but there's different types of designators for that information. For instance, there's a cloud with the sun barely sneaking out behind it to show that the weather is partly cloudy. Once I started getting a couple of bitmaps going, I thought, this is really cool. And eventually, I got my way down to the KWU emblem, and I managed to convert that as well. And when we get back to that point of where I was talking about how all these images end up taking up a ton of resources, after I got done making this whole thing, I was like, how can I make this better? How can I make it faster? And that was when I encountered something called the dithering algorithm. And this will be a great way to explain. So the dithering algorithm gives you a specific amount of resources, I guess we could say, towards each of your individual items. And what I basically did is I went through each of my items that I wanted to draw on the screen, and I controlled how much definition I wanted to get to that item. So of course with text, I could get away with getting pretty abrasive with it. You wouldn't really notice anything of it looking blurry or anything because it's just text. But of course I wanted my images to look perfect. So after about a week of fine-tuning that, I got all my images done. And then I started to get to the fun stuff. I decided that I wanted to implement not only a location setting at the top bar, I also wanted to display weather. And after a few weeks of research, I managed to get some different weather kind of forecasts inbound. And then I hit probably the biggest hurdle I had in this project. I found out there's 54 different types of weather being broadcasted by the National Weather Association. So I'm going to be honest, I cut some corners and I used some of the same images for different types of weather. But I did implement a lot. In fact, I think I have, if I get down to this, I have 24 different images. And just to prove that I do, let's see, what's a unique type of weather that we will have? How about a sandstorm? And as you can see, the weather is now a sandstorm. After I got to this point, I was pretty happy with myself. I could have called it quits, you know. I had everything basic. We could show how many text messages I had, notifications, I had weather. My watch was telling me if my Bluetooth was connected or not. Everything was going pretty good. And one day, about halfway through my last semester in college, I was sitting in Dr. Bell's Python class. And if you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm terrible at math. I probably shouldn't have graduated throughout college algebra in this school, if I'm being honest with myself. But in that class, I was shown something, a math kind of function called the modulus. And it really got me thinking. And for those of you who really aren't sharp with math, modulus is a type of division where you'll end up with the remainder if it's not able to be divided into a proper amount of time. So for instance, if I want to put 5 into 6, I can go 1, but there's 1 remaining. So I get 1. And what I did is I took the height and width of the screen, which by the way is a circle, and the goal here is I want to have my battery level indicator go around the circumference of the screen. And currently, the battery level is 50%. And the way that I did this is, of course, I took the height and the width, and I've got them stored in these variables right here called CX and CY. I don't know why I named them that thing. I just decided I wanted to name them that way. Make it simple. What you can do is you can take the remainder of your battery life and you can multiply it by 360 because there's 360 degrees in a circle, right? And that gives me a pretty large number, so I want to take it down by a factor of 100. So I divide it by 100. And down here, this one line, all of this is just really controlling pen widths and color. So really, all this complication for drawing that circle, or I guess a semicircle or whatever is left of the battery life, is coming from a single line. That one line of code does all the battery. And to be honest, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I wrote several different applications so far in the year that I've been gone from this school. Some of which are being used by GE right now. And this is still probably like the best piece of code I've ever written in my life. I love it. I mean, sometimes I even have to think about it a little bit when I get back to it, because I probably sat at the kitchen table last night and wondered for 4 hours, how did I do this again? And even now looking at it, it's rather simple. Just, if you think about it, it really is. Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit too much, but it's just this one piece of line, it draws me in every time. Best part of the project. And in case any of you guys wanted to mark this for yourself, go ahead and get your phones out. I'll just show you the big piece of code. These 700 lines is what powers what I just showed you on the simulator. Yeah.
Like I said, pretty straightforward. That's all we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming to the Best of KWU. I hope you all saw the efforts that our students put forward in these projects and all of the successes that they've had, and I hope you wish them, like I do, the best in the future. Thank you all.